Today on Beyond the Stand, I sit down with Dr. Shane Colquhoun, music educator, producer, and thought leader, to dig into how we can make popular music education more authentic, more student-centered, and more sustainable for teachers. This one is packed with practical insights you can take straight to your classroom. Let's dive in. This is Beyond the Stand, the podcast that explores how music education is evolving. Each week, we sit down with educators, students, and leaders who are shaping the future of music learning, sharing practical tools and big ideas to help you inspire the next generation of musicians. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Stand, the podcast where we explore the why and how of teaching music beyond traditional models. I'm your host, Jeremy Bryant, and today's guest is someone whose voice in the popular music education space is bold, passionate, and rooted in real-world experience. Dr. Shane Colquhoun is an assistant professor of music technology, a producer, author, and longtime public school teacher who spent over a decade building a thriving music program in a rural school with just 200 students. Now he's helping shape the future of music education on a national level through his work in NASME's Innovation Council, Association for Popular Music Education, and more. In this episode, we talk about schoolification, student-centered learning, and how our role as music educators needs to evolve if we want to stay relevant and truly serve our students. Shane doesn't pull any punches, and I think you'll appreciate the honesty, insight, and energy he brings to the conversation. So let's get into it. First, thank you so much for being a part of this with me, for reaching out, and I'm loving having all the conversations with the people I'm talking with. So to start us off, can you share a little about your journey in music education and what's got you to where you are today?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've been following the episodes that you've released, and it's been amazing. So my journey, how far back do you want me to go? I think so much of this is rooted in experience, right?
Right.
So whereas I could talk about what happened when I become a teacher, I think a lot of my journey is actually rooted in the idea of, and I'll give you the short-term version because I've said this a million times, being in middle school band, starting band in 6th grade, going through high school band, and to some degree going through college, where I was doing the traditional band thing. I was the percussionist. When I got to high school, I fell in love with marching band, so I wanted to figure out how I was going to march the rest of my life. But on the side, I was actually in a rap group called Mad Rage, and I signed my first record deal at 16, and I was making beats on the side, but this area of my life was just hidden. Like, I never brought it into the classroom. I never talked about it with my director. Even at college, where I was majoring in music technology and business, but also on a band scholarship. What I did in band was there. What I did in music tech was over here, and there was just no overlap. So you fast forward, graduate with the tech degree. I go get my master's. I begin teaching at a small rural high school. And like about 8 years into the experience, I hated it. I was like, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. I had grew the program from 7 kids to like upwards of 65 to 70, which we only had 220 kids in our entire school, grade 7 through 12. So do the math on the percentage. Right. I was a rock star. But if you think about the other 80%, and the thing that I try to tell people to focus on when we say the other 80%, if we have 20% of the students in our band program, there's actually 80% of kids that are not getting music. That wouldn't fly in any other subject area, but we want to be considered co-curricular. So I was quitting the field so much that I went to go get another master's in higher ed administration. Got this wild idea that I wanted to present on popular music producers, and I found APME.
Okay.
So go to Miami, do the presentation, standing ovation. I realized that there are a bunch of people out here teaching about popular music and all these cool things. Life changes. And that's kind of like the Cliff Note, dirty version of how I got to where I am now.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you stuck with it after you were getting frustrated after some time. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so there's a lot of similar stories that I hear. So to kind of get us rolling, I want to talk about, and back last month, I saw a Facebook post that you had made, a thought for the moment. I've got it right here. And first, I want to talk about your thought for the moment, just to get us
Okay.
rolling. And then I want to talk about kind of my response and kind of interact around that. So,
Yeah, yeah.
July 26th, thought for the moment. Whenever I talk about including students' interests and the music they actually listen to in our classrooms, the go to response is often, but shouldn't we be expanding their appreciation for other, more, quote, quality music? My answer is yes, we absolutely should, but should that come at the expense of their own culture, identity, and musical interests? It's about balance. Too often we perpetuate the idea that there's a hard line between school music and the music students willingly engage with at home. That divide doesn't have to exist. Great
Mm.
teaching bridges it.
Whoever wrote that's a genius.
I'm telling you, I'd like to meet that guy someday. So tell me about that thought. What the thoughts behind that? I mean, you kind of laid it out there pretty well.
The thought behind that is really rooted in the question that at the beginning of my popular music education journey, which we can bookmark and come back to the fact that I'm actually trying to move away from being identified as a popular music educator in that
Okay.
conversation.
Yeah.
I used to ask a question all the time: can a music program exist on just popular music alone?
Hmm.
And you would never imagine like the people that how they would just cringe and like, oh my gosh. And I mean, tomatoes thrown at me. It's been fun to have the question, but I think people mix the question up. Could a popular music, a program operate on only popular music? Absolutely, yes. It's music. All of the music elements are there: melody, harmony, rhythm, pitch. All of that stuff is there. But I think the better question is: should a music program operate only on popular music? And I can argue that no, it shouldn't. We should be exposing our kids to other genres, other music, other styles, the classical music that we've all come up. We should be exposing. But what happens is we've been so trained to actually do the thing that we said we shouldn't be doing, where everything is centered around classical music. And this idea of anything outside of Western classical music idiom is considered bad. And I think that happens. Like basically we tell our students, hey, come in here, we want you to learn music, we're going to teach you, but leave your stuff at the door.
Mm.
Like, and then we wonder why they're not really connected or why we're only serving 20% of the population.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And so naturally, when I'm hearing you say those things, my response is, oh, okay. Well, I more recently, I at age 30, 33 or 34, actually got my teaching certification. And it actually, going through those programs, and I actually got my teacher certification in strictly education. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Music, and then I got my teaching certification later. But going through so much of that, the phrase you hear very often is, we need to meet the students where they are. So I replied to your Facebook post and said, hey, that sounds like a lot like we're talking about meeting the students where they are, but maybe we're not doing that thing if the music they're actually engaging with is not, quote unquote, allowed in the classroom. Which I think, that's what I'm discovering is I'm having a lot of kids, more than I ever had in my marching band, deeply engaged in the subject matter that we're doing because it's what they're bringing to the table.
Mm-hmm.
But then you said the phrase meeting students where they are is becoming problematic, and I wanted to dig into that a little bit because I'm curious. I want to see where we go from there.
Yeah. So a couple, and when I made that comment, it was in response to another music educator who I highly respect, who I just hold in the highest acclaim. And but I think the idea of meeting kids where they are, it's almost like bait.
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to authentically meeting them where they are. So I'll give you an example, and then I'll talk more specifically about the meeting kids where they are. So imagine if I said, Jeremy, we're going to go out to dinner, right?
Okay.
And I'm going to take you to Outback. And you look at me and you say, Doc, I don't like steak. Can we go somewhere else? I said, I'm going to take you to Outback, get you a steak. You say, I don't like steak. Can we go somewhere else? And I say, cool. All right, let's go to Longhorn. I'm gonna get you a steak. You see what I did there?
Yeah.
I switched it, and but I'm giving you the same thing. So like the same thing would cross my mind, where like this whole idea of being culturally relevant and playing music from different composers and different genders. It's still, if I'm teaching at a predominantly Black high school and I go find a march written by a Black composer, I'm still giving them the same thing. So I think with this idea of meeting kids where they are, I think we are in this space where, cool, bring it in. I'm going to bait you. But the first chance I get, I'm going to bring you back over here to the quality and the real stuff. We don't sit in the moment. So I pulled the book here, the modern band method, right? So imagine a kid brings me the song Halo, right? And if you look at the chord progression, it's G, A minor, E minor, first inversion, second, right? Mm-hmm. So they're playing it like, Doc, look what I can play, right? I think our training takes us, let's talk about those chords. Mm-hmm. And then let's go look at this scale. And then this was also here, as opposed to, you like Halo by Beyonce. Do you know any other Beyonce songs? Can you show me another Beyonce song that you might have learned? What's the chord progression there? Then you just go down the rabbit hole of the student's interest without always having to go back to the thing that we were taught to do. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say I feel like we're using that meet them where they are as a bait just to get them in the door. And as soon as we get them in, all right, put that away. Standard of excellence, page 1. And I'm sorry if I'm long-winded, but that was my point on that.
Yeah, and I think that's great because, so much of what I'm discovering transitioning from the middle school and high school band director to the popular music space, and eventually I think I will be kind of combining two as my role increases at my school. But the thought of, man, what I'm discovering is so many people I'm encountering are so focused on the students like I've never seen before, like the people in the popular music space.
Okay, they're still focused on the students.
Yep. They're in just going to the APME conference and talking about what we're doing for our students. Is something I've not seen in the traditional. It's always about, what standards are we meeting?
Well, I was about to say, can I ask you a question? If the people that you're running to are so involved into the students and interested in the students, what are the other people doing?
Yeah.
And that's an honest question.
Yeah. And that's what I think. I think about, there was so much pressure even in my first gig in this. It was a 6 through 12, very rural school. And man, I had a handful of kids that were just like, we're in marching band and we do marching band competitions. But so many of my students they didn't give a rip about that. And, I started focusing on, okay, what do you do? Well, I play drum set really awesome. And it's like, okay, well, let's find ways for you to do that. And then for it to be okay, like you're saying, to actually, you know what? He's a great drum set player. He likes all this stuff. Instead of saying, okay, now I'm going to put this page in front of you where you're going to count for, 4 out of the 5 minutes of a tune, you're going to count, and then you're going to pick up a triangle and you're going to play it, which of course has its place in that world. But this guy came to band to play music, not to count.
Yeah.
And so, but all that to say, what I'm discovering is there's a real student focus, and I want that. And when it boils down to it, even when I'm maybe encountering opposing viewpoints to popular music education, when you bring it down to the level of what are we doing for our students, you find that the pushback is not there as much, where we're like, oh yeah, this is why we do this. It's for the students. Yeah, and I want to keep rolling in this kind of conversation because what I
Can I
wanted
pause
to.
there for a
Yeah,
second?
yeah, go
I
ahead,
had
go
a
ahead.
thought on what you were
Yeah,
saying.
go ahead.
I think a good teacher, a great teacher, in this space will always put the student first. But I
Mhm,
think the other thing that a great teacher will do, and this may be counterintuitive to what I said before, is to convince or to encourage the student to expand.
mhm,
So the the platform for that expansion starts with their interest. Because I actually very similar to you. My guys were we about later in my career, later like probably year 10, 11, 12, 13, we really got into marching band competitions,
mhm.
which is counterintuitive to the whole popular music education thing. But what it was, what I really believe, and it didn't hit me until I listened to you talk, was they really enjoyed marching band. We were
Mhm.
a traditional style marching band, similar to Bethune-Cookman, FAMU, Alabama
Right,
State,
right.
did that, and they absolutely loved it. The pushback came from the other side. After marching band season, when you tried to give them band lit, they weren't having it. What happened was what I started to do, and this is where I say it's not a or, it's an and. We can do both. We can operate in both spaces. So what I started doing, and I really just hit me in a moment, and the program took off, was, of course, we're going to do a marching band thing. We're going to go win every competition we go to, which we did. But when we come back around in the spring, I did what we called the Red Day, White Day. So red days were dedicated to traditional band lit because, there's things we have to do. White days were pick your own adventure musically. So
Hmm.
we would have drum sets everywhere. We would have kids playing piano. We would have kids learning songs on YouTube. And I think that freedom and that meeting them on two sides of their interests within this band space and within their out of school music space and bringing that in and then also checking the box. I think that was a fair balance. And I really think that is the space that if we're really tapped into our students, that we should be seeing a lot more of the creativity and those things.
Yeah, I think it really creates that space again for them to buy in,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel safe. They feel cared for because you actually legitimately do care about where they're coming from.
Yep.
And I think I'd go back to the original thought of, we get so much into kind of the bait and switch of get
Yep.
them in the door,
Get
and
them
then
in the door.
we'll teach you scales, and
The right thing.
if yeah, we'll teach you the right thing. Um, we get so focused on, and I say we because I'm this guy. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
how do I get them where I need them to go? Um, instead of really being focused on who that student is when they walk in the door and
But
really
that's such a
caring for
problem
that
though.
student.
Where do we need them to go?
Yeah, there's all this. I feel like this outside pressure is,
Yeah.
we've got, and I work for an independent school, so we're kind of creating our own structure, our own standards for what being rigorous is and how we're helping students grow.
That's dope.
Um, um, you know, but even still, it's, man, if I'm really caring about the kids that are walking in my door and seeing what they bring to the table already, if you sow into that, I think naturally when you talk about expanding, there's a desire to do that. I've talked about it in previous podcast episodes with the president of Tennessee Music Educators Association, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
talking about students that do popular music and then become interested in traditional things.
Yeah.
Um, but that's not because someone pushed them to do that. It's because what they brought to the table was respected. And then they grew to love music.
Yep.
And because they saw themselves as a musician and weren't told when they walked in the door that, hey, yeah, your music is fine for what you're doing, but real music is this.
Mm-hmm.
Or like
Mm-hmm.
you quoted, like you said, quality music is XYZ.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I think Dr. Chris Burns even said, he's like, the fact that they're creating music makes it good music.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
the
yeah.
quality music is because they're creating it. That makes it creative. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a certain way for it to be good. And I think, what I want to keep talking about here is this transition as a teacher from this. I have a certain curriculum. These students to progress as quote unquote musicians have to be at a certain level at a certain time, but to bring them in and kind of give them the reins and say, who are you as a musician? And what direction do you want to go? How do you want to grow? So, I mean, what do you think is some good advice for a teacher? We talked about like what maybe being a great teacher is. How do you make that transition from saying, we're taught in our collegiate education, you're the sage on the stage, you have the baton. This is how you help your clarinets play in tune, which are all good things. But how do you transition from that style of do as I say, right when I say it, to, hey, you have value as a musician when you walk in my door, and giving the reins to the students and letting them take that direction from there?
Well, this is gonna sound kind of tough, but the thing you're going to have to do is you're gonna have to kill the I. Like in the statement you said, I need to, I have to, and it's like, and like according to who and what, right? And I think I would ask the question, whose goals and whose let's just use the word goals because I can't think of anything at the moment.
Okay.
Whose goal is more important? What is your goal gonna, where is your goal gonna take your student? And where is the goal of the interest of the student gonna take the student?
Right.
Like we train everybody that enters our music classroom traditionally, or we were taught in college to train every student that comes in our class like they're gonna audition for the Boston Philharmonic. What if that kid's goal is to perform at Coachella? The goals aren't aligned. I mean, it's just that clean. So when I say you have to get rid of the I, you have to reimagine, like, one of the things that on my first leg of all of these conversations was, who are my students? What do they know? What do they want to know? What do they need to know? I've said it a million times. I'm tired of saying it actually now. we focus so heavily on what they need to know and completely overlook the three. What do they want to know? Who they are. And that's why I said is just the I has to go. You're going to be able to get to all of your curriculum stuff. You're going to be able to hit the things you want to get to. We're all like, you don't get to music education teacher, band teacher, certification without being a halfway intelligent person. So I think if you can flip your train of thought and pull the I and start with them and then get back to that, it would be a little bit more healthy. And now, just a bit of a discretion, just letting you guys know, I've been at this for 10 years. So the freeness that I speak about this stuff, this is not normal, guys. I have failed more times than I would like to admit. The first time that I actually tried to offer a pop ensemble modern band class, I somehow ended up teaching music theory, like college level music theory. But so I've failed at this. I've failed at this miserably. But the more I do it is the more that I realize that the more I make this about me, the less I'm going to be able to meet my students.
Yeah, when you said kill the I, I'm like, yeah, my selfishness pops up in there. Because sometimes I want them to sound great because it's going to make me look great.
It's all about us.
Yeah.
And I think you said something at the beginning, and I forget what it was, but when you said it, my thought was, we make this profession about us. It's about our ones. And you were at AP meeting. Did you see my group perform at the cookout barbecue?
At the cookout, at the barbecue place. Yeah, I did.
So I kid you not, when they were on stage, I literally said to myself, gosh, they sound good and they're doing a great job. I didn't do anything. Like, they picked the music. I didn't pop in at rehearsals, but like I was really feeling that I didn't do anything. And then I kicked it over, was feeling bad, feeling great. I mean, people were coming up to me in tears, like, that's so great, the performance. And then I realized I did the most important thing I could ever do as a teacher. I gave them a platform to be themselves and do the things that they enjoy and learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more important than that in what we're doing. So I just think that whole idea of how it should be and the eye has to go in order to get this thing in the right direction, or in a to open the door for more. We're doing great. If we did band and choir and orchestra for the rest of our lives, music education would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, do we want more kids in the building?
Yeah. And I think when I had this discussion with some of my students in an episode that I've not released yet, but it's coming out next week, that was my piano player, who she's only been the only part of my program for 1 year. She's a visual art person and a drama person. And she was, she came and did my class. And she said, I think there are more people in schools who are doing music than the school's music program reflects. And this was a junior. She'll be a senior this coming year. And she's saying there's more kids out there doing it. And that's what I battled with. They said me kind of transferring over is I've come into this situation and the students coming in they're doing their thing. And, I give them some, hey, let's think about this and a little direction here and there, think about our audience a little bit. But then for the most part, I'm going, what am I doing? Like, am I doing enough? And then, through this whole process of getting my master's, we've had to do some projects on some writing on the goal of a teacher is to become irrelevant. And that's a battle for me, because I'm like, well, I want to be relevant, but at the same time, when I see my students do the best is when I'm taking a step back and saying, I don't particularly like this music isn't my cup of tea, but you guys are digging it. And I always give the example of my cafeteria concert I did for lunch one day. And I had one group I kind of like lined out for them, like, what I would consider the standards, Michael Jackson, kind of these almost a wedding band set, just like what I thought would be cool.
Your standards.
Yeah, my standards. Exactly. But then the other group, I was just like, hey, you guys just kind of put your set list together. And they played like 90s music. And I'm like, all right, cool. The whole cafeteria was singing, was like in that with them. The other group, they were like, oh yeah, that was good. That was excellent music being played. But the what they were into was what the students showed of themselves.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, yes, and that's what I'm trying to like facilitate it myself. That's part of why I'm on this podcasting journey. Is like, how are people doing it? Because I'm still trying to move over and effectively, like, I want the students to grow, but I don't want them to grow because of me. I want them to grow because of the direction they're going as musicians.
So I came out hot and I said, kill the eye. Right. Yeah. That was the very harsh way of throwing you in the deep end of the water. The two other things that I would suggest is, one, as you begin to kill that eye, you have to begin to see yourself differently in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And your role. You mentioned earlier sage on the stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can also be a facilitator in the classroom. You can also be a producer in the classroom. You can also be a learner in the classroom. You can also be a participant in the classroom. When we met in Memphis, it was so funny how literally I intentionally made the decision. I was the manager of the group. I wasn't a teacher at that point. I was the manager. Make sure you show up on time. Make sure everybody has what they need to perform. So I think with the killing of the eye, as I said, you have to kind of begin to see yourself differently. The other thing, on this student-centered, learner-centered journey is the idea that you have to realize that it's one, a process, and two, it's a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
The mere fact that you're letting them play popular music is a win. Okay, so I mean that's if I was in charge of the popular music or the student-centered gate, okay, you're letting them play popular music, cool. There's some people that still don't even think it belongs in school. All right, so now the next step is you're going to pick half your set. The next set is you're going to pick all your set. And you got to grow. So we have to allow ourselves that grace and that time, and to understand that there are levels to student-centeredness. And depending on your students, you'll have to play different levels and you'll have to play different roles. If that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, so what I'm trying to think is, I hear, you talked about being a facilitator. Let's just talk about facilitator, because I think that's the biggest thing that I kind of take out of this, and what I'm working on is like, how do I go from, and even one of my students said this, she's like, I was surprised at how student-led the class was, and that it wasn't the teacher telling me to do this, but it was, you kind of giving us what we needed and moving forward. So how someone who's wanting to take that step and to move into the popular music realm, maybe they're already teaching band, they're already teaching orchestra, but they realize that there's students in the school that aren't being reached by the music program, that are interested, that do have something to say. How does that person who is still living every day with a baton and start at measure 52 and watch that tempo and then move into that facilitator role?
I think facilitator is like, we've jumped the horse a little bit.
Okay.
I think you can become the facilitator once they're in the room and you have something going. I think the first step in the process is just asking questions.
Okay.
Finding out what the students are interested in. Finding out how they're making music, if they're making music, what are their interests about music. Like, for instance, you may be recruiting a kid whose main mode of music, quote unquote, music making or interaction with music is they listen to music and they write reviews. That's a powerful tool. That's a real world job. You may have a kid that they don't make music, but they know how to operate a DAW. So they engineer a lot of things. So I think jumping to facilitator is a bit fast before actually knowing the interests of the kid. Once you know the interests of the kid and see where they are, then it becomes about diving and seeing where they are. One of the things I do in my pop ensemble is, if you join the pop ensemble, obviously you play, you sing, you do something. For the first 2 weeks, I said, all right, I need y'all to put together a song individually, no more than 2 people. I'm always blown away by who does what. A kid that I thought was a guitar player comes in playing piano. A kid that I thought was into 80s R&B is singing a K-pop song. Just by opening the floor and asking questions. Another, and I'm probably giving an article away, so hopefully this comes out later than the article. But another thing that we miss is we're focused on the other 80%. What about the kids that are in your traditional ensembles that are musical code switchers? They play in the emu band on the weekend. They play in the funk band, that we just never simply ask them, hey, what are you interested in? Would you mind opening up our winter concert and playing, 10 minutes before, just doing your thing? Oh, you DJ? Okay, so you'll get the after concert questions. I think that's the step that starts it all.
Yeah. And I think when I think about that, I think it goes back to that root. If you're really caring about what your students have to offer, it's getting away from that eye of like what I have to do, but it's what do my students have to offer, and do I really care about helping them do that?
Mm-hmm. The banker's model. We treat them as a bank where we only deposit money.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take money out the bank sometime.
Yeah.
But we only focus on putting money in,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's really great. Oh, man. So now, we talk about these things, and I think I even asked this question at your session at the APME conference. We are in the school setting where sometimes there can be, not administrative pressure, but like their expectations um, that that are on put on us by whether that be state standards, national standards, what your school district is trying to do as far as the arts go. If you are in a highly, a situation that's highly competitive and they want it to be like a football team where you're bringing in trophies, that's what success means. So what advice do you have someone that's kind of in that situation where there's a lot of expectation from an employer's standpoint, but you want to pursue this student-driven model?
For the sake of this conversation, because it gets tricky, I want to table standards and assessment.
Okay, all right.
Because that those are always a go-to, and I think that at times derails the conversation.
Okay.
And not to oversimplify it, but it goes back to the whole eye of it all.
Okay.
And I think if you're in those situations, one, I will never advise anybody to go into a system, a school, and just completely attempt to flip it on its head.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make this gradual. I don't think anybody can do it all at once. Change doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly over time. But the other part, which I think is not spoken about enough, is part of our job as educators is not only to educate our students, but also the adults and people around us.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to present your ideas in a way that's tangible. I always ask the question, and I hope no arts administrators are listening to this. I don't understand why more of them aren't upset that only 20% are participating in our traditional ensembles. Like, I think that would be, if I was an arts supervisor, I would be like, hey, what do we got to do to get more kids? We're paying you a full salary to teach 20% of the people. But, so I think flipping it back the other way, that as educators, and that's why I say it comes back to you have to be willing to sell and build it over time. So I would suggest using examples, using other schools as models. Maybe before you present the idea itself, develop the product, in a more covert way and work it around that way. I think there's just a lot of ways, but a lot of this is just selling. Just like you sell that kid to play the clarinet or the flute, right? The administration needs that same thing in order to get behind. And the one thing that I have found is that once administration and stakeholders see investment from the kids, you can't lose. The first time I introduced that pop ensemble with the music theory, within 2 weeks, my principal was asking me to play during the cafeteria wave. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's just do the work, have the conversations, be innovative. Don't try to reinvent the wheel too quick, but strategically plant the seeds.
Yeah, I mean, man, I love hearing you talk so passionately about this just student-led learning and like the student having a voice.
That's good to hear, because most of the time I feel like I'm rambling.
Yeah. So trying to think practically, because we're in season 2 here, and I think season 1 we got a lot into what I was trying to do with my actual graduate project was say, hey, this is why this belongs.
Yeah.
And I want to try to, and we're doing that by talking about the student voice right now. We're talking about how this actually functions, because I think I've even experienced where my first year in this gig, I was trying to be like, you're going to play this and this chord and this chord, and you're going to crescendo here and decrescendo there. And they're like, bruh, what are you doing?
Yeah, like what the crescendo? Yeah. Okay.
It's like, oh yeah. So like, I guess.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's flip it this way. Tell me about your current situation, teaching gig, and what you're doing, and then maybe we can plan out the next steps
Okay. Yeah, that's
in
great.
real time.
So what I have is my main gig where I'm at is I am the commercial music ensemble director.
Okay.
Name is in construction. We're trying to I want to kind of revamp the branding because people think we make music for commercials. Um, so anyways, that's it's the pop music ensemble. And historically at my school, that's been like the elite group of like the best auditioned musicians.
Okay.
And what I noticed coming in was like, yeah, kids are taking lessons at School of Rock and they're coming in auditioning for this group. And they're coming in as, this elite group. But what about the kid in the school that wants to learn how to be a musician?
Mm.
There wasn't a place for that yet.
Mm-hmm,
So I started, I had a student audition for me the first summer, a bass player who played the two songs she auditioned with very well. But then I was like, I kind of asked some questions, gave a little mini lesson, and was like, with the kids I knew I already had in the group, I was like, I don't know that this is going to go well. And all that to say, student he didn't get in the first year, but I stayed in contact and try to transition the group to, hey, we're going to have people that are super awesome that already come in and can shred, but someone who's not quite there yet, I still want them in my class because they're going to learn from the people who are shredding. I think it's Victor Wooten talks about, how do you learn to talk? Well, you learn by jamming with other people.
Yeah.
And then you get the language, and then later you learn the nuts and bolts of what the language actually is.
Yeah.
So I want to give these kids opportunity to play with guys that are playing. So anyway, so I have the pop music group that I'm working with, helping them engage with music. And this is where I'm trying to get out of the I want to walk into the classroom, sit down and talk with them and say, what do you guys have to offer? How can you work together to lead your group? And try to be that facilitator. My whole program, I've got guitar and I'm teaching music through technology. There was a separate music theory class and a separate music production class, which would, I'd have 2 in one and 4 in the other. So I said, well, why don't we do music through technology? And the students who are really looking for the music theory, we're going to do that through the medium of the DAW.
Yeah.
And then the music production, they're learning the music theory, but they're getting around in the DAW. And then as we move along, we start creating from there.
Gotcha.
So, and that's where I'm at, is like how to effectively and balance that in the area of, I want to encourage them to take what they're doing further.
So do you teach, how many periods a day do you teach?
I am teaching, let's see, I usually have 2 sections of guitar, 1 of music. So last year I had 5 periods.
Okay. And now all the people you teach that get into the class, is it all auditions?
Yes, for the pop ensemble class. Music production, music production, guitar is just sign up and come on in.
Okay. For the pop ensemble class, I think if you're really trying to get the student voice and push, I think, and this is just me talking, you talk to Steve, he may recommend something else. You talk to I think the more you can get them to be individuals and make decisions is the better off it's going to be. See, a lot of times we think notice the word you said, ensemble.
Right.
And we go right back to, band with guitars, right? So like, is there a world where you come in first week, all right, we're individually working, or we're working in singles, and show me what you have?
Mm-hmm.
This also opens the door for that person that's the novice to come in and see where they are. And like, one of the things I like to do in my pop ensemble is 2 things. At least every 4 weeks, I do goal sheets.
Okay.
I ask, what are you working on? What is your goal for this semester? What are you trying to accomplish? Yada, yada, yada. And then another thing that I do is two things. I always are keeping a running list of songs and music that they want to play. And what I may do is if we're doing one of our goal sheet sessions is I may take everybody's paper and then play everybody's top song. And while I'm playing, they'll start playing along because then you get to see what's catching on.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that I do is smaller groups within the groups. And I encourage them to work independent of me. And for assessment purposes, every 3 to 4 classes, you have to do what I call an informant, where basically you perform what you have while I recorded it. Just to make sure that I'm holding you accountable, and then in that I'm moving in and around and in between groups. Right. I don't know if any of those ideas resonate.
Yeah, I think the idea of I've got so many different personalities. I've got doubles of the same instrument. I've got two senior bass players. And just the idea of allowing them to be who they are individually. And not get stuck up in the ensemble word right off the bat.
Yeah. And then actually mixing up the groups, right? So if you have 2 guitars, 2 bass, all right, 1 week, these 2 are together, put something together, then flip-flop it, because that's actually what the industry is going to look like, right? You may go into the studio and today you're working with this set of musicians. This day you're working with this set of musicians. This week you're in your own hub, putting down your own lines, and just try to create those experiences.
Yeah. And hearing you say the goal sheets, that's actually something I do more with my second semester guitar students. First semester guitar, I'm helping them get acquainted with the guitar, teaching chords and things like that. And then second semester, I'm like, all right, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Do you want to be a finger picker? Do you want to learn your bar chords and kind of guide them through that? But, having somebody say, oh, what about in the pop group? Have them set their own goals too.
And this goes back to our traditional conversation. If you don't know what your students are interested in, how could you actually educate them?
Right.
Maybe I'm oversimplifying the conversation.
But yeah, well, that's the thing, talking about, I keep going back to the 90s concert because, I lived through the 90s. I didn't like the music.
Yeah.
I was listening back to the 80s and skating rink music. I grew up in the skating rink, so that's what I was listening to, skating rink funk. But we learn because the students were interested in Blondie. So we learn I can't remember the actual tune it was. It's mixed meter. And to me, like I'm going, we're listening to this song and my drummer goes, what's going on here? and also that drummer was an excellent piano, like classical piano player as well.
Okay.
And so she's like, this is 4 then 3. But because I was like, okay. So like the students were interested in it. They got to dive into mixed meter, how they play that together as a group, but it was something they were interested in. And then they were really able to buy into the education part of it instead of just, oh, this is a meter, the top number means this, the bottom number means this, and please memorize that and apply it whenever you see it on a piece of paper. No, they encountered it in something they really enjoyed. So you saying, how can we educate them if we don't really know what they're interested in? Like you said earlier, we're gonna get to our curriculum.
You can't help but do it.
Yeah.
You can't help but do it. Like, I teach fundamentals at our class, at our institution at Alabama State, which is the precursor to music theory. And I had a kid in there that was a piano player, and he played in his church all his life. Matter of fact, he was at the conference, and that he said that's the first time he's played in front of people outside of church. And I was like, oh, wow. So anyway, he's in this fundamentals class, and obviously we're just doing the traditional thing. And it's like one day he just played something, and he showed me the progression, and I said, this is what you did. And it was exactly what we talked about in class that day. And it was just him talking about it. Another time I introduced him to lead sheets. So I
Yeah.
said, okay, you have this lead sheet. It's 1, 4, 5. Play it. Now move it to F. Oh, wow. It's that easy?
Mm-hmm.
And it all works together. And the more invested, the more interesting, it all works together. And the more connected they feel, the easier it is to connect the other dots.
That's great. Man, yeah, we're almost at an hour here, so that's that's why I knew starting this process, because I talked to a few people. It's like, if you really get people that are passionate about talking this sort of stuff
It'll fly.
going, yeah, the time just goes by. So I
I
love this.
don't feel as though I've gave and sorry to cut you off.
No, you go ahead.
I feel like I don't feel as though I've given good enough practical examples or a practical way to get it. Like, it still sounds really mystical to me in my brain.
Okay.
When we're explaining and encouraging teachers to do it. So I think I just be clear that I don't want to oversimplifying it.
Yeah.
But a lot of us will simply asking the students, what are you listening to? What would you like to play? How are you musicking outside of school? And then investigating those things would be a very big step for most music educators, and open the door to a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, and I know, like you said, it can sound oversimplified, but that is just such an eye-opener. That's like such a light bulb moment to say, actually ask them what they're interested in.
Yeah.
And see where it goes, because they are doing music.
Yeah. I did, I'm over recruiting at Alabama State for the music department, and we had invited AMP, the Atlanta Music Project, down. They brought about 15 students. So we were sitting in the hall and giving them this big explanation about what we're going to do in the tour. And they just looked bored out their mind. So I said, hey, y'all are coming to visit the pop ensemble class today. Do y'all just want to listen to us play, or do y'all want to be active musicians? They said, we want to participate. We want to be active. I said, all right, be careful what you wish for. So they come to pop ensemble. We do our set, killed it. So I said, all right, guys, we got 30 minutes left. What we're going to do is we're going to take 15 minutes. You guys are going to split up. And in 15 minutes, you're going to come back and perform your favorite song. Anything you choose. Don't care. The level of creativity, collaboration, and energy that I saw from those high school students was phenomenal. What happened, they broke out. We had some kids that got with some of my college kids, and my college kids played the stuff. We had kids go in the hall and figure out some musical parts. We had kids doing, one kid was banging on the table while the other one was singing. Yeah. We had a clarinet and a tuba who had their instruments. I don't know why. Oh, they were auditioning.
Oh, okay.
And they played a tune together. So the clarinet played the melody while the tuba played the bass part. And I'm like, one, I didn't think that it was going to go that well.
Yeah.
But the energy and the level and the thing that they came up with was absolutely phenomenal. And it just started with me, and to your point, when you were saying that, I feel like I'm yapping, but when you said you didn't have a bass player in the class, I'm not going to say it bothered me, but I think we missed something, right? What happened to the idea of approximation and amateurism? So if I'm playing a bass part, Billie Jean, so I can't get all of that. So what if I just did and I'm next to the bass player? How valuable is that experience?
Yeah.
Because eventually, and this is that music as a second language, where eventually they build, how powerful is that experience that, okay, I'm in there, I'm not quite there yet, but I have something to work towards while I'm actually playing where I am.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted the attitude change, because I was like, oh man, where is this person? Like, first of all, I was like, they're going to feel behind in the class. So I'm mind reading, right? What are they going to feel like when they're among all these people? And then that are just, maybe skill level, far beyond. But instead I'm like, well, how did it feel then to want to do something and then not have that opportunity?
Mm,
Um,
mm,
but then, luckily I did invite her to join, like help with the middle school group. I was like, you have ability and I
mm.
value that. I want, I need help with the middle school group. Like
That was a
not,
great
not, not,
participation.
not you're at a middle school level, but I need help.
Yeah.
And
Kudos.
so then played with us there for a year. And then the next year I was like, hey, you're in. You've helped me with the middle school group. Like this is not no audition necessary. Like you're in. And
That's so beautiful. Look at
yeah,
that bridge that you built.
yeah. And what I discovered is like, I have one bass player that will sight read tab down. Like it's unbelievable. Like he just looks up tab, not played the song before, and he can have most of a tune just by listening once and then having the tab, and he's got it.
So
And
fun. You said sight reading, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and then when I heard tab, it went
yeah,
back down.
yeah. So and that's funny is the other bass player has a little notebook, and when it's time to learn a song, she puts the bass down and goes and sets, and that little notebook is full of tab, and doesn't pull it up on a website and look it up. Let me pick the bass up, write it down, and then it's a process. It takes time,
Yeah.
but when it's time for performance, she knows tunes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another powerful point, right? Where we talk about I. When we got into music production in my pop ensemble class, the guys would spend, if it's a 45-minute class, they would spend the first, kid you not, 30 to 35 minutes playing the parts on the piano before ever putting it in the DAW. And it would drive me insane. I'm like, you guys are wasting time. What would happen is they would work the parts out, then go in the DAW, drop all the parts, and then choose their sound. Whereas when I'm producing, I do everything in real time. I'm going to play it, run audition sounds. And what I had to learn in that, like, hey, this creation space is not yours.
Yeah.
Their creation process is not yours. Their music making is not yours. You're just a participant in the journey, but you cannot control every aspect of their music making and their creating process. And that was, again, getting that I out of the way.
And that's what we have to remember too. They're still students.
Yeah.
We've been doing this, I'm primarily a trumpet player. So like I've been playing trumpet since 1997. Like really, that's when I joined band, so when I have a trumpet student that's in the 5th grade and he can't make a, solid note yet, I can't just be like, oh, why don't you sound like me? But that's what, try to do in the pop class too. It's like, why can't you guys just throw it in there? Like, even talking about the DAW and talking about music production, I'd let them use loops to try to understand kind of a song form. And when they don't line up, their loops with the grid, like they don't line it up on beat. So you get kind of things bouncing around. I'm like, have to give that grace to say, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah.
And give them the time to set in, figure that out, and go through that process. It's humbling to do that, to realize that, like, we have the power to give the students the agency to take control of their music education and go where they want to go. But we also have, you've got to be careful because we have the ability to do a disservice to students as well by trying to conform them to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I actually released a quote from my episode with Michael Parsons today where he says, we're trying to conform our students to what we want them to be instead of saying, what do I need to be in order for you to experience music in a meaningful way?
Yeah. And that happens too. There's one point that we haven't hit, actually.
Oh, come on with it.
The process. What do you think? What do you think the missing point is?
The missing point?
If we're letting them become who they want to be, allowing them to make mistakes. and
Okay.
humanizing
Okay.
that we're not accepting, but like the idea that nobody starts out perfect
Mm-hmm.
and that like it's okay to learn and fall off the wagon every now and then as long as we keep
Yeah.
moving forward. Like I can't remember when I was a band director, I was a bit tough.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot I've probably terrorized more kids than I would like to admit on making mistakes.
Yeah.
And that it's not we don't make mistakes. You have to, and this space, I'm not gonna say embraces, but
Mm-hmm.
it allows you that space to not be perfect.
Yeah.
Which
I'm going to tell a
was like,
marching band story in a popular music
huh?
podcast. But I said, I'm going to tell a marching band story in a popular music podcast. But
Yeah, yeah.
so at my first gig, we had, and I think this kind of sums up that kind of allowing them to make mistakes is the history of my old school, being as rural as it was, they had a rough kind of go of it with marching band directors kind of in and out. And, you know, the same idea of kind of like, hey, we don't make mistakes. We're excellent. We don't do X, Y, Z. And we were doing, the show was Women of Rock. So we were doing, Stevie Nicks and Pat Benatar, Joan Jett, things like that. And we were going to add on we're building the show through the year. We're going to add on a show song that Friday night, and it just wasn't going well. And this was post COVID. Yeah, so it was right after we were coming back from COVID. So I never had 100% rehearsal ever. It was just, kids were sick left and right. And
Yeah.
so we're going to put the new song on. And I was like, hey guys, like personally, I feel like it's not there yet. So my seniors were like, no, we're doing this. I said, okay, guys, you guys are very passionate about it. You feel confident. We'll put the new song on. It did not go well. It absolutely fell apart. We had to restart. Kids were crying. So I got them up in the stands before third quarter break. And I just had a big smile on my face. I was like, hey guys, did you die?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, no. I'm like, hey, guess what? Second half of football's going to happen. You guys are about to go get some Kona ice. And
You'll still get into college.
yeah, we had a bad performance. Like it's going to happen. I was like, I love you. I'm not mad. It's just these things happen. And so, yeah, I think being able to make mistakes. It's also, I think if you allow your students to make mistakes, they're going to, but if you make it okay to make a mistake, how much more are they going to feel safe enough to really engage and let you know who they are? Because a lot of times you can ask the students at the outset, what they want to do, but if they don't feel safe and secure, they're not going to show you who they really are.
Yeah, and that's truth. And selfishly, it also opens you up to make mistakes as well. Because one of the biggest pushbacks is, well, how can I rap? How can I teach rap music if I don't know any rap music or I'm not? You go, just like every other process, you learn about it. One of the things that I do in all my sessions, I didn't do it at APME, I make it a point to play or do some type of musical activity at every session I do. Because to show the audience that in this thing, we have to be participants. So at my last session, I actually rapped Jump by Criss Cross. And my hand was going like this, and it was so nervous. But it was that freeingness that, hey guys, you want to teach about rap, you can do it. Free yourself, allow yourself to be part of that vulnerability that you're trying to encourage your students. And if they see it in you, they allow themselves. And then it's just this really weird circle that just picks up steam.
Yeah. It's made me feel more comfortable about, talking to you about this has made me feel more comfortable about what, me taking the right steps, because, I have students that now feel comfortable enough. They'll even, we'll be talking about a piece and trying to think specifics. Oh, it's a Steely Dan tune. Ricky, don't lose that number. There's that little guitar lick. Or, at the end of the phrase. And, I'm singing it to them. I'm playing it on the piano. And one of my guitar players goes, is that how it goes? I was like, yeah, it is. And I had just always heard it as, I think, the last pitch going down,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
doesn't. And it doesn't. Like he's like, Mr. Brian, I don't think you're right. I was like,
yeah,
okay. I was like, well, let's listen to it.
yeah,
And we listened to it, and I was like, you know what, dude? You're exactly right. I've been hearing somehow I've been hearing that wrong this whole time. But the fact that he felt comfortable enough because of how I've made him feel when he's made a mistake, he was just able to be like, hey, I don't think that's right.
yep,
And we were able to do that and moveon.com.
yep. Move on, not coming. Move on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, as kind of a parting shot, I guess, kind of how can people get involved in what you're doing? What kind of projects are you working on that you feel like sharing right now? And how can people get in touch with you and
Yeah, yeah.
interact with you?
So, first thing I would say is, as the Council for Innovations chair, we have just launched a podcast, Innovations in Music Education. So, I think I would encourage anybody. Two things I would encourage. One, us that get it. We're still the very weird kids in this thing. So continue to spread the word, continue to talk to people, continue to ask questions. In the year 2025, there are still people that don't know what modern band is, don't know who Music Will is. I've never heard of the Association for Popular Music Education. So with that mindset and thought, my goal is to get and share the stories of as many music educators doing the thing as
Mm-hmm.
possible. And that thing could be anything. I'm not, when I say I don't like being categorized as a popular music education guy, I want as many kids getting music in class as possible. So
Mm-hmm.
if it's popular music, cool. If it's a spoon ensemble, cool. If it's mariachi, cool. Whatever it takes. This is not a one size all type of thing. So with the Innovations podcast, it's on our innovations page and it's in the resources pages at NAFME. Um, that's kind of the big project that I'm working on with them. The other thing that I would point you to at the moment is my book, The Producers of Pop,
Okay.
a comprehensive plan for studying popular music producers. It's on F flat. And what I did was I just did a book of how I think about how we should teach music producers. I think that the same way we learn about Beethoven and Bach is the same way we should learn about Quincy Jones, Dr. Dre,
Hmm.
and all the producers. So I start out with the role of the producer. Then I have stock worksheets with facts and fill in the blanks. Then I have a section where I give you ideas of building out student-centered lessons. Then I have another co-curricular activity where I have worksheets that say if producer A makes $50 here, makes $1,000 here, makes $20 here, and he owes his manager 20%, how much does he owe his manager? So it's kind of that cross-curricular thing. And
Yeah.
then a producer's glossary with like another 50 producers in there. So that's available at F Flat Books. You just search F Flat and it'll pop up in my name. In terms of social media, if you just look me up on Facebook, is where I drop most of my bombs. Shane Calhoun on Facebook, and then on Instagram and TikTok, I'm at Music and Ed, and that's also my webpage, www.musicanded.com, and that's a platform that I'm building out, and also YouTube, building out those platforms right now. And I do have a new writing project that I'm very excited about that is gonna cover and highlight and talk about. I'm hoping for it to be kind of the guide to moving away from being the sage on the stage and meeting the other 80%. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, well, thanks so much again for doing this with me. Again, wanting to keep it going, like you said, keep having these conversations. I was one of the people that didn't know the APME existed, didn't know modern band was a thing. When I got this job, I thought I was alone and I was doing something totally weird. And then I started to find my people. Met Michael Parsons over in Memphis first, and yeah, I'm starting to find more and more people, and just trying to learn through this podcasting journey, but then share that with everybody else, because I know if I'm feeling this way, there's probably other people feeling the same way too, that are just getting into it, and we want to all we want to make music education just this well-rounded thing that gets everybody in.
Yep. It's not or, it's and.
Yeah. And man,
There's a seat at the table for everybody.
Everybody keeps saying that, man. And then well, once again, thanks for joining us. This has been Beyond the Stand. Please go to beyondthestand.com. That's where I'll share these resources and also summaries of the show, of the episodes. And you can always reach us at beyondthestand.com. Thanks very much. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Beyond the Stand. If you found today's conversation helpful, please share it with another music educator who might need it. You can also follow the show on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to support the production of Season 2 and help grow this community, you can contribute through our GoFundMe. You can find that link in the show notes. Together, we can make music education more engaging, inclusive, and inspiring for every student.